What's up guys, it's me3 and welcome back to another video, and I'm just here to say I was right. Impulse has been out for 1 day and speed paint is already proving to be a game-breaking issue. In the Steam Next Fest demo, speed paint was obviously not even close the most popular paint. So the team at 1047 looked at that and said, okay, for the full early access release, we're gonna nerf it. And then the early access comes out, and we got people on the internet saying, the game is basically dead to me. They killed movement in this game. And so they made the decision to revert the nerf. It hasn't even been a day, and speed paint is already turning the game into a complete mess, exactly as I predicted in my last few videos. In my last few videos, I've been advocating for them to flat out remove speed paint, because it's always going to be used. In a movement shooter like Impulse, an ability that gives you a lot of speed very easily is always going to be popular. And because of it, that ability will always be in either two states. It'll either be strong, and everyone will be picking it with no variety, or it'll be too weak and it can never live up to the fun and speed that it promises. This is going to happen until the end of time, which is why I am going to say this again. Remove speed paint. That is the biggest problem with Impulse right now, and the whole massive fiasco that's happened in the last day, not even last few days, the last day in regards to speed paint, I think warrants that reaction. In the last few videos, I said they are going to look at the 99% pick rate on speed paint and try and do balance, maybe buff the other paints, maybe even try nerfing the speed paints, but they did try it and they reverted it. Speed paint is problematic, and that has proven that it doesn't work. Now you've reverted the nerfs to speed paint, it's going to be dominant until the end of time. The game already has a diversity problem. You play the game for 2 hours because the movement is so easy and the game has zero depth. That player has already experienced the entire game. You're taking this system, which has the potential to be cool and interesting, and you're saying, guys, the players complained, let's just make it as boring as possible. Speed paint is the only option because people cry about it if we nerf it. Their decision to revert the nerfs on speed paint invalidates that entire mechanic. Speed paint will continue to be by far the most popular, and if you nerf it, what happens? A massive hole is left in the game. Why? Because speed paint currently is really the only way to get very fast. The speed that you get from speed paint currently dictates basically the entire average speed in a match, because there are absolutely zero other ways to get high speed. Grapples are used for turning corners, they're not used for speed, and jump pads are around the map. If you want to get one to get to speed, you have to run there on your feet slowly. And the problem is, I don't think removing it is going to fix that problem. It's just going to make the game a whole lot slower. So, as part of the early access, I think removing speed paint is one of the things you can do in order to fix one of this game's biggest problems. Like I said before, it's lack of depth. 2 hours in the game, you've experienced everything the game has to offer, basically. And while yes, removing speed paint removes the game's max speed because it is basically the only option to get speed, in removing it, you can also add new options to get to speed. Stuff that adds more depth and is more skillful, other than pressing a button and going fast because you went through the orange goo. I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what more skillful movement options look like. Maybe it's adding variations to the grappling hook, you know, pulling a Titanfall, having a list of options that do different things. Maybe they don't have to all be movement. Maybe you can have some quirky, little gimmicky stuff in there. Stuff that combines into each other, not just move, shoot, die. Maybe you do my paint mixing idea, which I think is still a really great idea. I'm not going to touch on it too much here, but if you want to know more about it, you can go watch my previous videos. While the speed paint problem is part of a much larger problem with the game, it is its root cause, and that is a lack of movement options. Why would you want to pick anything else just to use the go fast queue? That's all you need to do to get fast in this game. It will never be balanced because it is the only way to consistently get high speed. By removing it, you allow for other options to be added to the game. I think speed paint can stay. in the short term, because there's no other movement options, I think removing it will just slow the game down a ton and people won't like that. So keep it in its current state as is. But as part of early access, the game does just need more depth anyway. And if you try to add it, speed paint will always be there as a cheap, easy way to do it. So why would you ever change off it? If you do add more movement options and you keep speed paint, people will still pick it anyway, because you might get the same speed, but it's easy, and other methods of getting speed might be more difficult. Long story short, at some part of early access, speed paint just needs to go. If the game wants more depth, it cannot stay in its current form. Although I think the game could stand to be a bit more grounded, people are saying they should make the game more like Apex and less like ADHD Go Zoom mode. I think that would be good, making the game more boots on the ground and having short bursts of movement instead of constantly flying around the map. You know, I praised the jetpack in my original After the Playtest video, but I think it's also part of the problem. Even though moving around is also not the best strategy, because your moving is very predictable, especially with the jetpack. You know, the double jump is more sudden. You do gain a big lurch, which can offset people's aim, but the jetpack, it keeps you at a very steady pace, and that makes you easier to track out the sky. So it's actually, moving around is not really the best strategy in this game, but we already knew that. That's just a movement shooter problem. I think it's a problem in Titanfall as well. All games that have tried like insane movement, that's always been a problem. If Impulse wants to improve, speed paint needs to go. If the game wants more depth and the game desperately needs it, speed paint needs to go. However, I don't think the game needs to slow down. Even if I think the speed paint nerfs they did originally were good and the game did need to slow down a little bit, I don't think the game should slow down to a crawl. And, you know, speed paint is fine currently, but, you know, over the course of early access, if they want to make the game more interesting, speed paint is just gonna hold them back. Anyway, thanks for watching. Could you imagine if that was my outro? That'd be hilarious.